Hello, everyone. Welcome to Forum 2021. I'm very happy to be cooking for you all today, especially after this very, very hard year that we've all had. I spent a lot of time cooking during lockdown because I have a lot of children, and it was at once exhausting and really pleasurable. One of the things that I love to cook and that they love, thankfully, is risotto. And a lot of people get kind of afraid of risotto. Sounds funny. But it's actually much simpler in a way than you think. The first thing is that you have to have a really good quality rice. And I use this rice, and they don't pay me to say this, but I promise. There's this rice called Aquarello, which is really, really great, and it's very hard to overcook. And that's one of the hardest things about risotto, is overcooking risotto. So I'm just gonna make a really simple risotto with asparagus, fresh asparagus, zucchini, and peas. So the base of this is a little bit of olive oil. I use extra virgin olive oil. And I have my pan heated up a little bit here. So I have some onion here that I've chopped. Can you see that? Can you see it? We have one camera. And so a little bit of onion, just sort of chopped like that. Chopped, diced, minced, like that. And then a shallot. So to cut a shallot, you do it the same way as you would do an onion. So you're gonna peel this off. You're gonna peel that little sort of fibrous layer off on the top. And then I'm gonna go like this, cut it this way, cut it this way, cut it this way. And then I'm gonna go through it like this. And I'm gonna be able to very quickly just dice it. And excuse me, the shallot gives it this really nice extra sweetness to it. And it's really, really, really quite delicious. So we have all that, and that's that. That's a shallot, or as they say in England, a shallot, chopped very efficiently. And you do the same with an onion. So that's all there. And then a bit of unsalted butter, excuse me, in your pan with the extra virgin olive oil. And we're gonna let that cook. I'm gonna bring up the temp a little bit. I had it on 6 before, which was a little high. I'm bringing it down to about 4. And we're just gonna sort of reduce these, or what, soften these, the shallot and the onion. And they're the thing that's gonna give the sweetness to it. The other thing that I'm gonna add to this is this beautiful chicken stock that I made, if I do say so myself. And some of the chicken stock I put in saffron. So you can see that really, really beautiful color that's gonna turn. And that's gonna turn this rice a really beautiful, beautiful yellow. And as you may or may not know, saffron is even more expensive than gold. It gives it a kind of, it's very hard to describe the flavor. I don't even know how to describe the flavor of saffron. But all I know is it tastes good, and it's gorgeous, and has been around for centuries, and was actually used to dye stained glass windows many, many years ago in Italy. Can you believe that? It's the truth. I'm not making it up. You can look it up. Okay, now, I'm gonna take this asparagus. The way to do this asparagus is, you don't just cut asparagus, because a lot of this asparagus isn't really gonna be edible. It's gonna be, as they say, woody. So, wherever this breaks, that's what you're supposed to use. This is what you're not supposed to use. So, here we go. It's a real thing. I'm not making it up. There. There. This is sad little skinny asparagus, isn't it? And there. And there. And there. Okay. So these are all pre-washed. So I'm going to take this asparagus and just chop it up, not finely, just sort of in little chunks, like this. And this is something that's going to go in at the end because you don't want the asparagus to be overcooked. It's gonna cook within the rice. Okay, so now this is softening. And once this starts to turn translucent, we're gonna add the rice in. Okay, the other thing we're adding to this is, so we have this beautiful asparagus, and then we have a little parsley that we're gonna use later for garnish. Then we have zucchini. So I'm cutting this. This is all pre-washed. I didn't want to bore you with my washing. And I'm going to do sort of the same thing I did with the shallot and the onion. I'm going to cut it this way, sort of thinly. And then I'm going to go this way. Now the thing is, you can cut this stuff any way you want to cut it. If you want it like in matchsticks or whatever. I'm just going to do this and just make these little sort of cubes of it. And you don't need a huge amount of it. And it's always better, of course, if you can buy organic. Anything is always better. But of course, that just doubles the price of everything, which is unfortunate. The less you put in, the more it costs. Okay, so here we go. Someday that'll change. Okay, so now I have all this, and it can just be roughly chopped. Nothing has to be perfect at all. A lot of Italian cooking is really very rustic, to say the least, because most Italian cooking, actually all Italian cooking, was born out of poverty. So there's very little sort of refinement to it, but there ends up being a delicacy to it. Okay, so if you look, come here, lots, show. Look at this right here. Okay, so this is your onion shallot mixture. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this rice, and I'm just going to do. That's gross. I'm just going to do. I don't measure. Here, come up to me. I don't measure, really. So I do it by hand, and this is a sort of general rule. So 1 handful per person. But I guess if you had really big hands, that would be, or really small hands, that would be. So just anyway, you figure it out. Okay, so there we go. That's 3, 4. I'm just going to do 5, which I think is about right for the size of this pan. So speaking of, when you're cooking risotto, you want to use a low profile pan. There are specifically designed risotto pans if you want to buy them, but I would suggest something low like this, because with a strong heavy bottom, because otherwise if you have sides that go up high, it starts to turn a little mushy. It starts to steam a bit, and you want the heat to sort of spread out. Okay, so now I'm going to stir this around, and what I want to do, if you see these kernels of rice, they're sort of one consistent color now, like this, right? As I cook them, what's going to happen is we're going to end up seeing sort of they change color, and you see more white inside them. Once you start to see that white, and I've raised the temperature a little bit, once you start to see that white, you know that the rice is is getting to the perfect point of doneness before you're almost sort of like frying it a little bit beforehand. And here, what I have waiting, bubbling away, actually a little too bubbling for some reason, is chicken stock, homemade chicken stock. You can use a stock that you buy, you can use stock cube, whatever you want. But you can use vegetable stock if you want it to be a completely vegetarian dish, or you can use chicken stock. So, and that's what you're going to use to keep sort of liquidizing this this dish. Okay, so now let's come right here. So if you see this, see now these are starting to change color, and you can see them getting sort of super white, and that's what you want. Now, I'm gonna jack this up a little bit, and I'm gonna take some white wine. Here, we're gonna use this. We're gonna use this Grecchetto, which I've never tried, but I think it'll be good. Here's the key thing too. Don't use like cooking wine, okay? If you ever come across cooking wine, just don't buy it. Buy a wine, use a wine that you would drink, always, whether you're cooking a stew or whether you're cooking a risotto or whatever. Buy a wine that's drinkable. There's no such thing as cooking wine. That's just bad wine. So I'm just gonna splash this in. And you can hear that, and that's what you want. And I'm gonna stir it up. Now I'm gonna lower the heat, not put it up too much. Okay, so now what's gonna happen is the alcohol is gonna burn off, but that's gonna give it a really, really beautiful, beautiful depth of flavor. You can also, a lot of risotto recipes might call for vermouth, which can also be really, really nice. Okay, so once this, once that alcohol burns off, and speaking of alcohol, I'll burn that off tomorrow. Okay, now, so there we go. Okay. Now I'm going to take this. Your stock should be warm, right next to your pan, and you're just going to ladle this in, and you're going to cover the risotto. Now, there are many different schools of thought. Actually, there aren't. There are two different schools of thought. One is you stir your risotto constantly. The other is you let it sit a little bit and keep going back to it and stir it back and forth, back and forth. I used to stir it all the time, and then I got tired. So I'm sort of in the second school now. So I'm gonna let this just cook. So what's gonna happen is this, this mixture is gonna start to reduce. As it starts to reduce and the rice absorbs all of the stock, you're gonna slowly add more stock. And then eventually we're going to add these. Now, I'm not pre-cooking these. I could pre-cook these, but I'm gonna put these in first because they're gonna take a little longer to cook than the peas. But I want this asparagus to be kind of firm when it's in there. So I'm gonna put that in. I'm gonna do this first, I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna put the peas. You can cook this all in advance and just have it and just add it at the end. But there's something about this way that's it's a little bit fresher. Okay, so in the meantime, oh wait, I forgot one thing. I'm gonna add now a little bit of this saffron that I've dissolved in the stock. Well, not fully dissolved, that's a shame. Anyway, here we go. So we're gonna add some of this, and it's gonna start to turn a really beautiful, beautiful orangey yellow color. I just think that's so pretty. So this is what you use for like risotto milanese, has saffron in it. Okay, now, so if you were making a meal, let's say, and you wanted to have a starch, and a meat. You could make this, as I said, you can make this a vegetarian meal if you want. You can just do it with chicken, with the vegetable stock or the chicken stock if you want, if you don't want a vegetarian meal. If you really don't want a vegetarian meal, you can cook this steak, which is a classic recipe of my family's, which is steak oreganata, which is a dish that my dad used to make all the time. Now I'm heating up this pan. I'm gonna get it super hot, and I'm gonna sear this steak. But first, what I'm gonna do, and this will be uncomfortable, but I'm going to pound this meat a little bit. My assistant is lobbyist. Okay, so I have this nice, I got a piece of ribeye. Okay, you can use a flank steak, or you can use, I don't know, a skirt steak or something like that. But a ribeye's a really beautiful cut of meat. You can do a lot with it. So I'm just gonna pound this. Oh God, that's gross. I'm gonna pound this. I'm gonna pound this a little bit thinner. I have to throw that butter out later. I'm gonna pound this just so it's a little bit thinner, because this is a steak that you want it to cook super fast. It's not, you're not sort of, it's not a T-bone. It has a lot of fat in it, which I love, but you want it to be, it's like a minute steak. So I have to wash my hands. So, and the thing is, it's so delish, and it's really, really simple, and also kids really love this dish. Okay, so while that's cooking away, and this is heating up, sort of, because the stove just went on the fritz, we're gonna cook this. And this is a meal that is super simple, super inexpensive to make. Actually, with the exception of the saffron, it's all really inexpensive to make, which is, again, you know, Italian food came out of necessity, poverty, and what was available. And the greatest thing about risotto, for me, it's like pasta. You can do anything with it. You can put this in it, you can put, my wife made one the other night with red onion and sausage and red wine. It was absolutely delicious. You can do just about anything with it. Okay, so if you see this now, so we see how this has started to absorb the moisture, right? Now I'm just gonna add some more of this. And there we go. And we're gonna let that cook down. Now, this is heating up super fast. So now, we're gonna sear this steak, and I am using extra virgin olive oil. I know people say you're not supposed to do that, but I do it, and a lot of chefs I know do it. So, I'm just gonna add this. Now, I've pre-salted this meat, which is a really good thing to do. Do it with chicken, do it with red meat. With fish, you can pre-salt it just a little bit before you're gonna cook it. But definitely with red meat, salt it in advance, bring it to room temperature, then you're gonna cook it. And that's what you wanna hear. I know the fire department will be coming soon, because I'm not gonna turn on the extractor, otherwise you won't hear me. All the interesting things I have to say. Okay, and I want to get this super brown on each side. I want to sear it, and then I'm going to take it off. I'm going to cook a little bit of garlic. I'm going to cook a little bit with a little bit of red wine and oregano, olive oil, and butter, and that's going to be then it's going to go back into that sauce, and that's your dish. And it's what my dad used to make all the time. You can also make this a very similar dish without the butter, but you can take like a marinara sauce, and you can even take like fresh tomato or something like that with a little bit of onion and garlic. And if you wanted to put like pepperoncini, see, that's what you want. See the color of that? That's what you want. Okay, now the other side. And this is super fast. If your kids are starving or you're starving, it's really simple. How's it going so far? I hope it's going well. Okay, get a shot of this lot right here. Okay, so that is cooking beautifully. I'm gonna turn it up a little bit, actually. That is so pretty. All right, I'm gonna add a little bit more of this. Some people don't mind seeing these little sort of, strings of saffron. Other people do. I don't know, they're quite pretty. Okay, so. See that? I have to turn the fan on, or the fire department's gonna come. I'm so sorry, it's just so embarrassing. Okay. And then you can kind of just do the edges a little bit if you want. Okay. All right. Now, I'm going to throw this. I'm just putting it in the drawer. No, I'm throwing it onto here. Now, I'm going to let this pan just bring the temperature down a little bit on this pan. Because otherwise, if I were to put the garlic in, I've just chopped garlic finally someplace. If I were to put the garlic in right now, it would just burn and it would be gross. So I'm just gonna let this cool down a little bit. Then I'm gonna put the garlic in, a little bit of butter, a little bit of olive oil, red wine, and oregano. That's your dish. A little bit of salt if you want. But don't forget, this is already pre-salted. Okay, so this is coming along really nicely. Now, I'm gonna add these in. So the zucchini is going in. Excuse me. And we're just gonna let that cook for just a few minutes. And this is like I suppose like a risotto primavera. You can put whatever you want in this. You wanna put Swiss chard in it, you wanna do whatever to it. You can do it. Okay, now this has come down. So what I'm going to do, just in case, I'm going to turn this off. I'm so sorry. Sorry. I'm going to just add. I just want to see how hot this is. That's pretty hot. That's like a little too hot. All right. So I'm gonna add. Should I try it? Yes. We'll do this. A little oil and the garlic. So that's just like a clove of garlic, roughly chopped. Should it be chopped finer than that? Yes. Okay, so I'm gonna bring this back to the heat, which I've brought down a bit. And now I'm gonna add some butter, and this is salted butter. In this, I'm gonna use unsalted butter because otherwise I won't be able to gauge how much salt I need. In the steak, the more salt you have, the better as far as I'm concerned. Okay, I'm adding this butter. Now this is gonna burn now, get close to burning. I'm adding a dash more oil. And if ever you get to the point where it starts to get like too, you feel like it's burning or you feel like, add a little splash of water and that really will sort of calm things down. Okay, now I'm adding just a little splash of red wine. And now I'm going to add the steak back in with my hands. And to that, I'm going to add a little bit of oregano. And I might just add a little more butter because it gives a nice, That's a hot knife through butter. Just a little more butter. Okay, now I'm gonna bring up this heat again. Okay, now this is cooking down. If you come over here, lots. So this is cooking down, and see how this is absorbing it. We're seeing the exposed rice on top. We don't want that. So we're gonna do this, and we're gonna add a little bit more. I'm actually just gonna add all that chicken stock and that saffron, okay? Now, I'm gonna add the asparagus and I'm gonna bring up the heat. You just have to sort of be aware of how it's cooking. You can modulate the heat, you can keep it evenly. As I said, you can stir it all the time or leave it a little bit and then come back to it. Okay, come over to this steak over here. So that is that, and that's done, okay? So as this is cooking down, and like I said, it's really nice if these vegetables have a bit of a bite to them. It's much more, it's just nice. You don't want them to be too mushy or whatever. And one of the great things, again, about risotto is you could very easily take this same thing, you could take shrimp that you don't even have to pre-cook or anything because shrimp cooks that fast. Cut up some shrimp, pop them in here at the last second. This will cook. This will cook your shrimp. You can do it with lobster, you can do it with whatever you want. Chicken, I would suggest you cook in advance, but you don't really want to put chicken in risotto. That's like gross. It's sort of the opposite of a paella, but they're like cousins. So paella, you don't touch it. You put it in, you put the stuff in periodically, you know, but you don't touch it. You let it sit, so you get all that beautiful, I can never remember the name of it, underneath. Risotto is the opposite. You want to keep it moving all the time, so there's a real consistency to it. Okay, so these are really cooking now. Now, I'm gonna add the peas. I have no measurements here for you, and I apologize. It's all basically by eye. So that is your, I don't know, risotto primavera, I suppose, okay? Now imagine, I don't want to drag this video out for too long, I'm already doing it. So imagine now, this has cooked a little longer, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add Parmigiana. I'm going to turn the heat, I would turn the heat off, okay? Excuse me. I'm going to turn the heat off. I'm going to add a kind of load of Parmigiana, and I'm going to stir that in. I'm also going to add, that's gross, I'm also going to add unsalted butter, a chunk or chunks of unsalted butter. Now, this butter is unfortunately at room temperature. It should be cold. So, and then we'll just mix that in. The colder it is, the better. And forgive me for not doing that. So now, you stir that in. You almost can't have enough of this. I'm gonna add a little bit of salt, which you can do earlier too if you want to. Then I'm gonna take the top. I've shut the heat off. I'm taking it off the heat. I'm gonna put the top on. And you put this top on for like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, okay? And you just let that sit, and you let all those flavors and all that stuff amalgamate. And hopefully what you'll have is a beautiful risotto. So you would have, this would be your meal, risotto primavera with saffron, and you'd have a beautiful steak oreganata. Really simple, really nice. You can do like a salad on the side or a vegetable on the side or something like that. Or this alone, you have everything you need. That's my video. And thank you so much for watching. And I'll see you again.